Hi, everyone. Welcome to the next episode of Horrifically Horrifying, presented by Hollywood Critics Association. I'm here with my cohort and co-host, Heather Wixson, managing editor of The Daily Dead.
Welcome. Hello.
And I am Kevin Taft, and I am from Edge Media Network. Today, we are going to talk, obviously, we talk about all things horror. We're going to talk today about religious horror because Easter coming up. And as I pointed out, and this is a stretch, so it is the 33rd anniversary of the seventh sign, and Jesus was 33 when he died.
As somebody currently enrolled in a math class, I like that. I like that. It's also 3 is halfway to 6, and then 666. So I think it works out.
We got it covered. So we'll start by talking about literally this. Well, see, this used to be in my top 5 or top 10 of all time. I always forgot. And I saw it 10 times. I told you this earlier. Saw it 10 times in the theater. I was obsessed with this movie, mostly because I knew nothing about it, which was weird for me in '87 because I knew everything. I knew release dates and everything. And somebody said, "Did you see the preview for that horror movie with Demi Moore and she's pregnant?" And I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. So when it came out, I saw, they were kind of doing a countdown, like the first sign, the second sign, and by the seventh sign, it was the day of release. And I went to see it, and it was not what I thought it was going to be. And by the end of it, me and my friend at the time, well, we're still friends, were bawling. I thought it was the most touching. And I'm not a religious person, but I thought it was very touching. I don't know. I loved it. It's not really a horror movie per se, but.
Well, I appreciate your devotion to it. It is appreciated at this time of year.
Thank you.
When we're all devoted. As I've learned, I'm going to hell over the last week.
Me too.
So
I'm following Lil Nas down the whatever.
Falling down the stripper pole to hell.
Yep.
Right down. Yep. Yeah, that was interesting because there's so many hypocrites out there who are just saying all these things about like, oh, why. Inciting the children, think of the children, which I just think is the most hilarious discussion ever. It's like, it has nothing to do with the children. You're just uncomfortable, and that's okay. And as somebody, you're older like I am, so you understand. Well, no, I'm like, you're of the generation that I am, where we lived through the satanic panic of the 80s and 90s, and it was a bunch of bullshit.
Yep.
And, I'm actually somebody, I was raised Pentecostal. And I also went to like different Baptist churches. And when I got married in 2001, I was married into a Methodist family. We went to church every weekend, So like religion isn't that far removed from me. Yeah. But one of the things when my mom was going through like a super church phase, like it was 90 to 91-ish, they had out in Illinois, the church we were going to, like right near there, they had one of these big, basically backmasking seminars. To teach children about the demonic influence of modern music. And we're not just talking heavy metal. Yeah. And there was like 500 kids in this like high school gymnasium up in McHenry, Illinois. And I remember it was like, so they got into like the usual suspects, the Ozzy Osbournes, the Alice Coopers, and all that kind of stuff. And then they started going into pop music, which was like the most ridiculous thing. I made this joke on Twitter, but I'm not even joking. So one of the artists that they featured was Whitney Houston, like America's sweetheart, Whitney Houston. And I was like,
what was the song?
This is the best. The song, somebody was like, oh, I hope it was The Greatest Love of All. And I was like, no, it's even better. It was I Want to Dance with Somebody, because the reason that she got so popular and that she had the voice that she had is because either her or her family made a pact with the devil for talent. So when she sings about wanting to dance with somebody, do you know who she was dancing with?
It's not Jesus.
It's not Jesus. I know we had to do our best Dana Carvey church lady impersonations. Could it be Satan? Right. I'm not like, look, Whitney Houston had a lot of issues, but Satanism was not one of them.
No.
So it was just a lot of dumb shit like that. But it was serious, like we're to the point where like I had to fight with my mom to let me keep my Cabbage Patch Kids. I was 12, so it wasn't like they were like a thing, but they were still like my memories.
Yeah.
But because the people we went to church with told her that they were unholy because of how they were born. And so they were representing a natural force that goes against God. So
Oh my
I,
Lord.
I'm not, it's like a real thing. And so I actually told her I would run away if she got rid of my Cabbage Patch Kids. But she did throw away, I used to have when I was really little, a bunch of records from the Smurfs.
Yeah.
But they're minions of the devil because
Oh,
they're blue,
geez.
they use magic, and then you have Gargamel over there casting his spells. So the Smurfs were definitely a no-no, and she got rid of those records, which probably would be worth like hundreds of dollars at this point.
That's so
So
weird.
yeah,
I mean, I have to give my parents credit for either just not paying attention to what we were listening to, or they just didn't care. I do remember, like, my dad didn't want my brother. He wanted him to get rid of his Linda Ronstadt albums because he was upset with because she got involved with some senator, and I don't know what it was. Something about the war, like protesting the war, and that's unpatriotic. But Satan stuff, like
yeah, and
they
it
never. But I mean,
happens.
I didn't listen to it either. But I was listening to Whitney Houston.
Yeah, who wasn't, but it was funny because like growing up, like everything was fine. It was basically like around 89, 90s when like she got like really into this stuff. Because my uncle started to like run a church out there.
Mm,
So that meant we had to like go all the time. And, so it was funny, like growing up, like years before, I would actually go to church like on my own. And this is funny. I was telling my other half the story last night, but like used to try, the church bus would come and get us and the kids in our neighborhood and take us, for a little ride before we went to church. And I was told by them that I was going to hell for liking wrestling because the men were all half naked. So I wasn't allowed to bring wrestling magazines anymore.
oh God.
And then we were talking about horror movies, and that was inappropriate conversation. And then the funny thing is, this is what got my mom to say that I didn't have to go anymore. Was they told me that she was going to hell for smoking cigarettes. And that's when she put her foot down, which I think is hilarious. But she was like, that was a bridge too far.
Right. It affected her.
Yeah.
She's like, nope, not gonna happen.
Yeah. It was actually like a sweet deal though, because like you would go and like it was like basically like bribing kids to go to church. And I was like, I'm for sale. Because like they would give you like these like little coupons and stuff. And then they would do like these auctions like every 3 months. And like I got like sweet like a skateboard once and like all kinds of cool stuff. So, basically I'm pay for play when it comes to Jesus. Wow, am I going to hell now or what?
Right? Yeah. Whoa. And anybody who knows what pay for play is. It's funny because I grew up Protestant and went to church every Sunday. We always had to go to church. I was in our youth group, PF, Pilgrim Fellowship, which I enjoyed because it was people we knew, like they were our friends. So like I enjoyed going. We had retreats, but it's like I told somebody this the other day, we went on a retreat once, in a cabin out in the woods or whatever. And during the downtime when there was nothing, no activities planned, me and one girl were like sitting in one of the bunks reading The Exorcist. Because she was reading it. So I was like, I'm curious, terrified, of course. And like the counselor came over and she just said, and she was like a married woman. She just came over and started talking about how when the movie came out, one of her friends would stare at her kid who was in a crib all day because she was terrified she was going to be possessed. But they never said like, get that out of your hands. They're like, whatever.
Yeah, I think I think that there's people who understand, like, if you're a religious person, and I'm not here to bag on religion because I actually think that it can do some good. And I actually think as a social structure, church is a good thing for a lot of people who don't feel like they belong to a community.
Sure.
I'm somebody who this was a good discussion I had last night, but like, if you think about it, like when you're like a little kid and you're doing Bible studies, it's sort of your first experience with critical analysis.
Yeah.
Where you're taking something and you're reading it and you're trying to parse it for information. So for me, the Bible is like Aesop's fables.
Yeah.
It's a collection of stories, and some of them are interesting and some of them aren't, whatever. But, so for me, like, I think it's interesting, like when people who are religious can actually have a discussion about like these things that would sort of inflame and infuriate other people. Because to me, if I was like in a Catholic church, and you wanted to sort of relate to teens, maybe even back like 20 or 30 years, because I don't know if the kids are down with exorcists these days. You know, who knows? But I probably would have shown him that movie to have a discussion about good and evil and these kind of things.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
maybe not showed him the unrated version,
No,
you
but
know.
I mean, it's a very pro religion movie in a way
Oh, it very much
because he's
is.
fine, right? And then, like, I think as I got older and watched it, like, I saw those things. The same thing with, and I know we're jumping around, but what's the movie? Because I wanted it to be scary, and I remember thinking, like, this is actually, no, wait, sorry. Well, I think I'm getting them confused. So there was the one with Patricia Arquette, Stigmata,
Stigmata.
but then it was the Exorcism of Emily Rose, where at the end I was like, and I might have been teetering on, like, I'm agnostic, I don't know what I believe at the time, but I remember thinking, like, what a positive message she was giving at the end of the movie. Like, I thought it was very pro religion, so I was like, I hope nobody writes it off,
Yeah.
you know, religious people writing it off, because it actually has a good message that would appeal to them, I
Yeah.
guess, is
Yeah.
my point. But wait, if I can segue, just because it's a good segue. So this movie, Requiem, and I can't do it. I, I don't know how to do the,
Almost.
but this is based on the true story that was based on the story of Emily Rose. Because Emily Rose was actually a German girl in the 70s, and I cannot remember her real name, but it was based on a real case. And this is more of the realistic retelling of it, where she has all these things are going wrong with her, and they start doing exorcisms, and she ends up dying during one of the exorcisms.
Hmm.
And that's really what Emily Rose was. They never knew if it was um, epilepsy or what was going on. And the movie does a very subtle job of making you go, like, is she possessed? Is she
Yeah.
not? Like, you can't tell, and it's actually creepier that way because you're not quite sure. And they'll alter, like, her voice slightly at certain times, so you're like, but then you're like, well, maybe she's just going through something. But it's an amazing, like, her performance is fantastic. Sandra Huller, I know she was in some movie that was really popular a couple years ago, a foreign film that got nominated about her and her father. But anyway, she's super good. But definitely Requiem, check it out. Again, it's not super scary, but it's a little unnerving, and she's amazeballs.
Interesting.
Amazing. Yeah.
So is that like your first two of your top three religious horrors we were discussing?
Probably, maybe so,
Okay.
because I think the other one would be The Exorcist.
Okay. Yeah, I was gonna go with Exorcist, but I went a little untraditional in a way. My first one that I picked, you know, and then we'll kind of go into why we're talking about religious horror and talk about some of the new stuff we've seen. The first one I picked was The Sacrament from Ty West,
Oh, yes,
which
yes.
it's weird because I think because of the way I grew up and sort of the beliefs that I was around, I think the idea of cults scare the crap out of me. And that to me is like, that's scarier than like a demon possessing a child in a way,
Mm-hmm.
because it's just such an insidious kind of evil.
Yeah,
And it's such a human evil.
yeah,
And that movie I absolutely loved. I thought Gene Jones does a really fantastic job in that. And of course,
he
it's
does.
modeled after the Jamestown
Yeah,
incidents that happened, which is still, I was watching a documentary and I saw like the footage of that and like the aftermath. And that's still, I don't know, just seeing little children face down in a field is really awful.
yeah,
So that to me is like, that's the kind of horror that really kind of unnerves me. Like demonic possession, I'm like, you know, human bad people in religion. Yeah, that's where you're gonna get me.
yeah, for
But
sure.
I love that movie so much. I'm a really big fan of AJ Bowen's, pretty much ever since The Signal.
Mm-hmm.
And he was
Oh,
in
yeah.
You're Next and
Yep.
a couple other like indie movies. I think he was in A Horrible Way to Die. I'm trying to remember everything because he's done a ton of stuff. Oh, House of the Devil.
Oh, right.
Speaking of,
Ty West
yes,
and
in
religious.
yes,
Yeah.
we could have done the Ty West hour or half hour. So I'm a big fan of The Sacrament. It also introduced me to. I'm trying to pull up really quickly the song "Heartbeats" from The Knife.
Oh,
I'd actually never heard it before the movie. So
but
I absolutely loved it.
But wait, you know what's funny is that was also in, but by another band covered it in, shoot, some other band covered it, and that's the only time I ever heard it.
Oh,
And it's a
interesting.
little bit more, it's more clean. It's not as, alternative sounding.
Hmm.
But I was obsessed with that song. That's so
Yeah.
weird that you say that.
Oh, yeah, I love that. So that was one of mine. My next choice was Prince of Darkness.
Hmm.
Since you're dealing with concentrated evil and
Hmm.
sort of applying physics to it, I'll be the first to admit that it took me a lot of viewings to understand just what the hell's going on in Prince of Darkness. And I say this as lovingly as possible, but I guarantee if you were to ask John Carpenter in this very moment what it all meant, he probably wouldn't be able to tell you. I think he was really into like the concepts and stuff, but I think he made a joke once at like a convention where he's like, I don't know what the math was. It just sounded great. It made for great movie. But I thought it was really interesting to sort of quantify evil because I'd never seen that before. And that movie to me is super unnerving. It's just, the score is fantastic. It's got like the opening credits are 14 minutes long, which is like
They
my favorite.
are?
Oh yeah.
I
If
don't
you go back and
remember.
watch it, it's like it starts and it cuts like all these little scenes into the opening credits, and it's like 14 and a half minutes later you finally get to the directed by John Carpenter, and then it
Interesting.
goes into the movie, which is amazing. I
It's
love
funny because
Carpenter.
I saw that movie when it first came out, and the one thing that I do remember, and I always remember, and I reference it a lot, and more probably just in my head, because it would be something that I would do. What I loved about it, and you talked about the score, and I don't know if it's necessarily the score or if it's just sound, but there's a throbbing throughout the entire movie that's just under the surface that made me constantly not nervous, but I was like, there was this fear of dread through the whole thing because there was never silence. There was always this something
that,
going
that was that was just the devil, and he's just right behind you watching the movie
on.
with you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
E.T. E.T. is
Yeah,
the
I totally
devil.
agree. There's the sound design of that movie is phenomenal.
Yeah.
And I'm a sucker for anything with Donald Pleasance in it, but that cast, like top to bottom, is fantastic. Like Jameson Parker, who plays the main guy with the big old mustache. God bless that mustache. It's just so great. He's I just, there's something really interesting to me about things that sort of push the psychological, like the physical realm and
Hmm.
religious, like sort of the religious realm, because you don't really see that.
Yeah.
And to me, like I can remember the first time seeing this movie when I was a kid, not understanding a word of it, but I still had that image of when, the hoof is coming out of the mirror, and like she's grabbing on the one who's all messed up is like grabbing onto it and like, pulling him out of the mirror. And that to me was like absolutely terrifying.
You know what's weird is I don't remember that, but suddenly I'm just thinking of Legend because a hoof comes out of a mirror in Legend.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, it
Yeah.
was like she was like, because they figured out that the mirror was sort of the portal
Oh,
to this, that where,
I need to
Satan,
rewatch this movie.
do it. It's fantastic.
Do you know
That's
they
your
played it in LA maybe 3 years ago
at the
in the
church.
church? Yes.
Yes.
I
I'm
wanted to
bummed
go
we
so
didn't get to
bad.
go.
I didn't
Yeah.
either. I
So
almost was going to. I was so close, but I didn't.
yeah, I'm, I think we're all getting really antsy now with the COVID stuff going on for years. So we're all like, come on, just give me all the events I can take for the next few months. Let's
Yep.
just do this,
Do it.
So let's go back to the church and watch Prince of Darkness. Like,
Yeah,
let's do that.
for
Um,
sure.
so what is your third movie? Or because is Seventh Sign sort of your ultimate of, oh, you said Exorcist.
You know what? It's funny though, because here's the thing. As much as I was like, we're gonna do the whole show around this movie, I don't consider it a horror movie. I consider it more of a thriller. So if I'm really going to talk about, but I still like, I know people do consider it a horror movie,
Mhm.
and I just wanted to bring it up to talk about it because I love it. I have the soundtrack. I know all the dialogue. It's really sad. Um, I would say Requiem, Exorcist, religious horror. Yeah, it's weird. Why can't I think of anything? Well, let's talk about more movies because maybe it'll come up to me. I was
Okay.
looking at my collection too. I mean, I will say that as much as I'm not religious anymore, demon stuff still freaks me out a little bit, but I find that exorcist type stuff doesn't really scare me anymore because it's the same every time. Like nobody can come up with a different way to do possession stuff as much. I mean, occasionally you get it.
Did you ever see Ava's Possession?
I did. I actually did like Ava's Possession.
That was a very different take on it. Actually, I remember that was the very first screener I ever watched with my puppy Utah, because he was that was the first South by, so that would have been 2014, I think, or 2015. And I really liked that movie a lot. I felt like a lot of people didn't really. It just kind of came and went after the festival circuit. So,
did you ever see Bad Exorcists?
No, I did not see that.
I saw it at CineQuest because I was in the top 10 of the pilot competition. So they invited us there. I didn't win, but that was one of the few movies we saw, and it's actually on Amazon. It is pretty darn funny. Okay. It's about 3 kids who decide they need. I think it's very similar to a couple other movies where they're making a film and somebody actually really gets possessed, so they have to figure out how to unpossess her. But it's definitely a comedy / horror. But it's super funny. Like they're very clever lines and stuff. It's good.
Interesting. Yeah, I actually wrote down a bunch because I was like, what do I consider religious horror? I'm like, do I consider Carrie kind of religious horror because of her mom? And that kind of reminds me of like being a kid and sort of being forced into things because my mom was a little overbearing. And I was like, am I working out my own issues through putting Carrie on the list? Another movie I put on my list was Blackcoat's Daughter. Oh,
I did see that. It was okay.
I loved it. I mean, I get it. It's you have to be I think in that frame of mind. But I'm ride or die for Emma Roberts.
Really?
Oh my God, yes, I am. I sure am. We are mere weeks away from everybody officially accepting the genius of Scream 4. So I'm really excited about it.
What do you mean? Oh, right. We talked about this.
Yes. So we're really close.
She just seems like a bitch to me.
She does. I'm okay with it. I don't need her to be nice to me. She doesn't have to be my best friend. I loved Scream Queens. So,
Okay.
It's the only consistent thing for me that Ryan Murphy's done. So
he's he hasn't done much that's consistent.
Yeah. But no, I absolutely adore her and I loved her in Scream 4. Right. So
fair enough.
But I really, really loved her in that movie. I loved her in Blackcoat's Daughter, and I thought Kieran Shipka was also pretty great too. And that
she was good.
Right before basically she was, going over to star in Sabrina. So that was like right on the cusp for her. Yeah. But yeah, that movie was like one of those oh shit movies where you're like, oh shit. So that one really got to me. And I love Oz Perkins as a director.
Yeah.
So
I did enjoy it. Like I didn't hate it. It just wasn't like, oh wow, that was amazing. But we kind of like I think I was on a date and we were like, no, not bad.
That's not a date movie though.
True. I don't know why that was the selection. Yeah. We never had a date again, so
maybe that was the reason. See, the first date I went on was Ghostbusters, and 12 years later, we're still here. So
really,
try Ghostbusters next time.
Like the original?
Yeah, we saw it at the LA Film Festival. They did like a screening of it there.
I'm so confused at the timeline right now.
I'm like 28 and 78. So yeah, no, it was like a repertory screening that they were doing for the LA Film Festival that was just open to the public. And I was like, I met him at a party and I was like, we should go see Ghostbusters. He was like, sure.
I saw that on a church youth group retreat.
Oh, look at that. Wow, they showed that at a church.
Well, no, they took us to the theater to see a movie and that was the one we saw.
Interesting.
I know. And here's the sad thing, and I should tell her because I think I'm friends with her on Facebook. So bad. So we're at a camp, right, with like tents and stuff. And I think we were doing, I think it was called the Heifer Project. So we were helping clean out stables and stuff. Yeah. There was a whole thing. But so we're there. So they're like, yeah, we're going to take you to the movies. They take us in the cars that we drove in with. And when we got to the theater, they realized they forgot somebody.
Oh my God.
So one of them had to go back and it was Katie Durfee. I am friends. I'm going to have to tell her that we talked about her. Poor Katie Durfee. It was so terrible. I'm
sorry, Katie. That's awful.
So bad. Like, but she was apparently very calm. I think she was just like, they'll come back, and she just sat in the tent by herself and waited for somebody to go back and get her and bring her back.
Oh, that is really bad adult supervision.
Right? Yikes.
Yeah.
Good church. Anyway.
Well, before we kind of hop into other stuff real quick, a couple other movies that were on my list because I was just kind of back and forth.
Yep.
Was Thirst from Park Chan-wook, sexy
You know,
vampire priest.
I think I did see it, but I saw it so long ago. I don't
It's
remember.
worth a rewatch.
Okay.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
I feel like I
So,
did see it, but okay.
Yeah, I actually we sat at a screening of it, and Leonard Maltin was in our row. So it was
Nice.
kind of like being at like a weird, sexy movie with your dad. It was nice. And I was so nervous because I was like, oh my God, it's Leonard Maltin. Like, I was like, oh my God.
That's funny.
So
I think he and I sat next to each other during Cabin in the Woods.
oh wow.
And he was like, if I get scared, I might grab your arm. I'm like, okay. And afterwards he's like, I didn't need to grab your arm. I'm like, yeah, I didn't.
Not something I would call a scare fest.
No. Not at all.
But yeah, so if you want some sexy vampire priests, I definitely recommend Thirst. There's also a movie that I really like called Holy Ghost People, which is a movie that came out, gosh, this was South by 2012. I'm looking it up really quick.
Holy Ghost People?
Yeah, it's basically about a snake handling church
Oh.
with Joe Edgender in it.
Oh, yeah, I see it.
Yeah, and I think I'm actually quoted on it, which is kind of crazy.
That's funny.
Just blowing up myself. But the reason I think that movie really stuck with me is because being from a Pentecostal family, I'd actually have been to a snake handling church when I was little. My grandmother, the church that she was going to, probably up until I was about 7 or 8, they did the snake thing.
Really?
Yeah, I was not a fan. They never tried to put me into it because I wasn't like an official member of the church. So, I was the cute granddaughter that came to visit once a year. And then something happened, and I think my grandmother ended up leaving the church. So it was.
Wasn't there one a couple years ago? It wasn't totally really a horror, and it was about.
Yes.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, it came out of Sundance with the gal from Booksmart.
Yep.
And it actually had somebody doing a really so with Caitlin Dever. Looking it up right now. I'm going to see how quickly I can get my IMDb to work while we're doing some very natural conversation here, of course.
I'm also looking up to see if what religious horror. I literally typed in religious horror. The Lodge isn't religious horror, is it?
I mean, she was in a cult.
True, because I'm one of the few that really like The Lodge.
I did too, but it messed me up. Them That Follow.
Yes.
Yeah, and that was actually pretty good. Because
it was pretty good.
Yeah, because my grandparents lived in West Virginia, so whenever you set like religious horror in West Virginia, like I was like, okay, yes, give it to me. But Jim Gaffigan, that's who I was thinking of, like, because he's normally like a funny dude.
Yeah.
And he's really, really good in this. And so is gosh, I'm blanking on her name, Olivia Colman, who's never. Like, she could be sleeping on a couch and I'd be like, okay, so we're going to nominate her for this, right? That's how great she is. But yeah, so that's another one. Yeah, just religious horror, like that kind of stuff, like always gets to me. But my ultimate would probably be Hell Baby. Have you ever seen Hell Baby?
I know what you're talking about, but I have not seen it.
Oh my God, it's ridiculous and goofy, but I love it. And every once in a while, I'll tweet out about pizza salad. And I always wait to see who's going to respond, because if you know pizza salad, you know Hell Baby, and then you're in the cool kids club.
Is that from the 80s or 90s?
It's 2013. It's Rob Corddry, Leslie Bibb, Keegan Michael Key, Robert Ben Garant, Thomas Lennon, the Reno 911 guys.
Maybe I don't remember this movie. Hold on.
It came out the same time as. There's an apocalypse movie that had Anna Kendrick and Craig Robinson in it. But it's
Anna
Hell
Kendrick?
Baby's. Yeah.
The devil got a baby mama.
Yeah.
It's the tagline.
Yes, it is. It's art. It's high art. It's cinema. That's the Al Pacino the Al Pacino meme where he's like, what a picture.
What a picture. I'm putting it on my Amazon list, if it's even on Amazon.
It's everywhere.
I don't know. It's only giving me a Blu-ray.
Oh, really? Because I swear I just looked it up for my indie horror list. I'm going to look really quick and see where we can find this. Oh, yeah,
baby.
it's on Vudu for free with ads, Tubi with ads, Hoopla, the Roku channel, Pluto TV. It's on Shudder. It's
It is
everywhere.
on Shudder?
It is on
That's
Shudder,
weird.
yeah.
That's weird that it didn't come up because my Amazon, I got Shudder through Amazon, and it usually will
Oh,
tell you like where, if it's not there, it'll tell you what channels it's on. But that's good to know. I'll just put it on my Shudder.
yeah, go for it. Yeah, if you're
Perfect.
in a particularly silly mood, it's fun.
I like a good silly.
Yeah. So
Definitely
talk
like a good
about
silly.
some of this new stuff.
Yeah, let's talk about it.
Okay, so I think we'll jump into Seventh Day since that's the one we've both seen.
Yep.
First of all, I'm really mad at myself because I watched this movie.
Yeah,
And
I
not for the
know.
reasons you're probably thinking. I did not know this was a Cinestate movie.
A who?
A Cinestate movie, which was I don't know if you were following all the stuff that was going on with Fangoria last year with Dallas Sanier. They basically were working with a guy who was accused. Did you hear about the case in Texas with the guy who was accused of raping or like being sexually inappropriate with one of the young actresses or something like that? If you go to Daily Beast to look up Cinestate, they basically hired this guy who was a total creep. They knew about it, but they still hired him and had him produce a bunch of movies with them. And then they also were like, they're the ones who did the Run, Hide, Shoot movie that went to deal with Ben Shapiro.
Mm-hmm.
So I've known Dallas, gosh, since about 2013, because I used to work in sales and distribution for this company. We used to work with him a lot, and I didn't realize like how super right wing he was. And which is, I mean, everybody's entitled to their, their beliefs. It's fine. But they did some really questionable stuff on their movie sets. Apparently, there's been a lot of complaints on the VFW set about Fred Williamson being super inappropriate. And so basically, their way to fix that was, well, just keep Fred Williamson away from the young women and don't let them be alone with him. But yeah, if you go to the Daily Beast, you can find all this stuff. So I had no idea that this was a Cinestate movie because they've changed their name now and stuff and rebranded. So now they're doing strictly right-wing movies. And I, and the thing is, it's like, I owe Dallas a lot because he actually had brought my book into the fold for Fangoria, was going to publish it. And when everything sort of went south and I realized I needed to go in a different direction, he gave me no problems in terms of giving me back the rights to everything. And, was very polite about it and understood and was totally cool in that way. But I was really surprised as I was wrapping up Seventh Day because I was trying to find out information about this movie. And there's like, usually when you get these movies, like you'll say like produced by blah, blah, blah. And there was nothing, and there's nothing on IMDb. And now I know why. And I thought that was really interesting. So I was like, oh my God, I got rooked into watching a Cinestate movie, damn it. But it wasn't great, but it was better than I thought.
Really?
I mean, again, I guess because it's exorcism stuff, I wasn't expecting a whole lot.
Right.
I actually thought it was going to be like, I don't know what I thought it was going to be. I mean, it does some really questionable turns in that movie.
Well, and that's the thing is like, my best friend and I were watching it at the same time, but in separate locations. So we text each other, and I was like, every time something stupid would happen, we would say stuff. But there was one point where I'm like, isn't it obvious what the twist is going to be? And he's like, yeah. And then at one point he's like, do you think, is everybody fucking possessed in this movie? I'm like, I don't know. And then it just, like, the special effects were ridiculously bad. Like, there was that point when they were there, they were looking at the homeless, or they went to see the homeless, and they went to talk to some guy that they thought was possessed, and some other stuff happens. And then suddenly there's this like weird gust of wind that
And
like
the tent goes flying.
The tent goes flying, but kind of like haphazardly. And then suddenly there's silence, and then everybody's just on the ground, passed out. And I'm like, but it was just kind of like a, like, but it happened like twice. There was another point where like the big moment was like a whimper. I'm like, what is going on in this movie? Why did Guy Pearce agree to do this?
I'm guessing mortgage.
You know, I thought about that too. I mean, there's a lot to be said for like health insurance. I
Yeah.
work for SAG Health Insurance, so I understand that some people just do a commercial because I need to keep my health insurance in check.
So, I mean, it sucks because he's Guy freaking Pierce.
Yeah. And
But
he wasn't good. He was kind of like, as soon as I was like, there's the priest who's kind of like, you don't want to wear
he's
your
seen it
collar.
all.
Yeah. And like, don't wear your stuff. Like, whatever.
He's
So
here.
I
He's
was already
he's
checked
he's the
out.
Dr. House of exorcisms. He's here
Yeah.
to break the rules.
It felt like a pilot for a TV show
I
because it
kind of did.
seemed
It was
like,
very procedural.
yeah. And then, like when it ended, you're like, I know exactly where this is going. And I could see them doing this week after week, that type of thing. But I kind of liked the hot priest is what I started calling him because I
I
was
could.
bored during the movie, so I looked him up, and there's some nice shirtless pictures of him. Other films.
So it's a solid 2 out of 5 for you.
So
Just because on Hot Priest.
I send him to my friend. I'm like, this is the priest. He's like, shit. This is how we got through that movie.
Amazing. Amazing. Well, I've been there. I know how it goes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like, again, I was expecting nothing from it.
Okay.
So the fact that I was like, I thought the little kid was actually pretty good for,
Yeah.
he was at least the most dialed in of everybody, I think, in terms of the performance.
Did you wonder, like, at one point, I'm like, are they going to make this about him clearly being a little gay kid? Because didn't he say he wanted to go to dance class or something?
Yeah, like he didn't want to play football, and he was.
Yeah.
You could tell like his family was sort of very like religiously
like
rigid
you're gonna play
and stuff.
Sports, yeah.
Yeah, and you're gonna do the things I want you to do, and so.
So what was the message there? Because he ends up going crazy. So is that like if you don't
guess,
follow the path of God, you're gonna?
I don't know. Maybe the devil's just not a big football fan. Maybe he's more into baseball. Or dance. He's into interpretive dance.
Yes.
I feel like the devil is more of an interpretive dance person. So
he only wants to possess the gay people.
Yeah. By the way, it's funny because somebody was saying how like about the Lil Nas thing really quick. And they were saying like, I don't know what everybody's all worked up about, because like ever since I was 12 years old, I just assumed the devil was in a relationship with Saddam Hussein, and they showed the picture from the South Park movie. And I was like, there you go. Nobody was causing a ruckus over that, I guess.
I know we don't have to go into a huge discussion. Although I just read a very interesting article somebody wrote about that video, basically saying like he appreciated what he was doing, but he kind of is setting us as a community back, because we've trying to get away from them thinking we're like these creepy, weird, satanic, we're doing horrible things people. And we're trying to get in, and we're not trying to be mainstream, we're trying to be accepted. And then now he's going like, let's do something with, blood and Satan. And so he's kind of screwing us over a little bit. Yet at the same time, he appreciated, the artistry and him being very open and being free to do it. But it took a lot for us to get to where he is. For him and the ability to do what he's doing, he needs to thank our generation. And so don't set us back. And when I watched the video, I was like, I was shocked that I'm like, this is what people are getting upset about. It's a joke. Like, how do you not see this as a goof?
Yeah. And also,
he killed Satan. So aren't you happy?
Yeah, right. Like in the end, he kills him. And I think also
he takes over.
I'm sure there's a joke about like conservatives saying how the gays are taking over everything. So I'm sure like that. And now you guys own hell. Congratulations.
We have a meeting at 9. What are we gonna do this week?
Yeah. Well, now that you've taken over hell, what is left? What is left?
I'm sorry.
But I think it's interesting because for him, like he was a kid who was born very like strict religious upbringing, and felt very persecuted, and it's like I knew this kind of stuff that I dealt with being like a straight white kid in church and feeling weird about that. So I can't even imagine the stuff that he was dealing with. And this was just sort of his, I think at one point he said something like his clapback, like he said that on Twitter or something like that. To all the people who like basically made him grow up hating himself.
Yeah.
And basically told him he was everything that was wrong in the world. And I think for me, to me is like what's wrong with certain religious institutions. It's like when you bring people up in constant fear, like that to me isn't what religion should be about. It should be about acceptance.
Yep.
So it's interesting. I get what he's saying. I get what that article is saying though, and because
Yeah, it's weird. I wasn't sure how I felt about it after I read the article, because I was like, yeah, I agree, but then I want the freedom of expression, and I kind of got what he was doing also. So I was kind of torn between
and I
it.
mean the straights are coming for the community anyway these days.
Right.
Like literally in every state, every day I'm reading something else and I'm just like, Jesus, like what are we doing here? Like literally, Jesus, what are we doing here?
Who is the person? I don't know who it was in some state. Some, oh no, it was him. But some, I mean, so some like senator or governor, no, governor of a state made a comment about it, the video and the shoes or whatever. And Little Nas, is it Little Nas?
Lil Nas X, yeah.
Little Nas. He said, he was like, "You're a freaking governor. Like, do your job. Stop tweeting about sneakers."
Yeah.
And I was like, this is exactly the point. Like, I'm shocked that this has become such a point of discussion and horror and terror, because it's like, just don't talk about it. It'll go away.
Yeah.
The people that will like it will still like it. The children get it.
Yeah.
That's the thing. They're not, no one's going to become a Satanist just because they saw a video. No one's even going to become gay just because they saw another gay person. I've seen straight people all my life. Do you think I turned straight? Did not. And it was all around me 24 hours a freaking day.
Can't get away from us straights. We are everywhere. We are everywhere.
It's fine. I accept you.
Oh, thank you. I've been persecuted for far too long, as you can tell.
I'm sure.
As a straight white woman in America, it's been really rough for me. So,
as a woman,
yeah,
you have your issues as well. I gotta.
Yeah, well, I grew up in a trailer park, so that's some points, I guess.
Yeah.
But anyway, believe me, I think that's why I see some of the stuff that goes on. I'm just like, Jesus Christ, like I know how bad it was for me. Like I can't imagine for other people. So,
sure.
But anyway, Seventh Day. Woo, that was a movie.
Skip
so
it.
you haven't watched The Unholy yet, huh?
I am watching it at 9:00 tonight.
Okay, so basically,
are you telling me it's? Oh, I'm so afraid of what you're going to say right now.
No, I mean, this episode will be up right after the embargo, so that's good. It's fine. I actually, there's parts of it that I really like that I didn't really know about it. I just knew it was Jeffrey Dean Morgan in a religious horror movie. Yeah. And then Bill Sadler pops up, who I love. So that was like, okay, cool. And then Carrie Elways pops up too. And I was like, okay, we're doing all right. I think the ending is a little goofy. You'll have to let me know what you think. But I like Jeffrey Dean Morgan, and it was just kind of nice. Like he sort of, his cocky, cool self, but it's sort of, he breaks down that a little bit towards the end. Okay. So, but the gal who is the main girl in it, and I'm totally blanking on her name is like Cricket something.
Oh.
I'm looking really quickly. I'm so prepared. Cricket Brown. I thought she was actually pretty good in it. And it was a very interesting, different take on religious horror than I've seen. And also some of the stuff with faith healing. Again, the way I was brought up with being Pentecostal, there we had faith healers and stuff like that. So that to me is always kind of interesting. So yeah, I don't know. It's gonna fly by because nobody really cares about movies yet. Give us a couple weeks and everyone's gonna be like, it's Saw, baby. Right. So, and again, they did nothing to promote the movie. Like they started running trailers like a week ago.
Yeah, I did notice though, like when I was looking at AMC's list of like what's going to be playing this weekend to see if there's anything that I haven't seen, and they are promoting that one. Like it's on a lot of screens, so it might do something just because there's nothing else out. It's other than Godzilla.
Yeah, I mean, let's be really honest. If you might as well go into this, if you're going to go to one movie this weekend and you're going to choose between The Unholy, Godzilla versus Kong, I think we know where we're going. I think I know where the majority of people are going. In fact, I have friends who rented a theater tonight. Did they? Yes, to see it, and I'm really jealous of them. So, but you brought props. I brought props. Yeah. So we have Godzilla and Kong. So yes, and they actually like scream and stuff. If I push the buttons, my dogs will go nuts.
Don't do that.
So, but they're fun and they have like little roars and stuff. So I haven't busted them out of the packaging yet.
I like it.
But I'm a Kong person, so
I was rooting for Kong.
I'm always rooting for Kong.
Yeah.
I think it's because as a little kid, Kong I saw before I saw any of the Godzillas, and so to me, he's always been the character that I've always loved. Plus, he just feels like a character you want to protect. Like there's an innocence to him still.
Yeah, yeah, and
Right.
I mean, honestly, you just as in a practical perspective, you can see more emotion than you can on Godzilla. So you're immediately going to identify more with the one that you can identify with,
Yeah.
because you can see what's going through his mind and all that.
Yeah. So I saw your snarky tweet. So did you like this one at least better than the others?
I will say that I did fall asleep for like 20 minutes. I was in and out, and I did have to pause it and ask my roommate what was happening, because suddenly I was like, why are there spaceships? What movie am I watching now? Like it just felt so weird and a little ridiculous. I mean, it's Godzilla versus Kong.
I'm like,
It's ridiculous.
it's a giant lizard versus a giant
Exactly. So
ape.
I
Okay.
take it for that.
That's in Hollow Earth, a place. Okay.
But I feel like that's where like it was different than the first three. Like Godzilla, the very first one, I had my issues with it, but like it was played fairly straight.
Yeah.
Kong Skull Island, my feeling on that one was the tone was all messed up. Like sometimes it was super straight, and then you had John Goodman come in, and there's all these weird, goofy characters. I'm like, what is this movie trying to be? Entertaining though, I give it that. And then Godzilla King of the Monsters, I couldn't. It was just too much. I was overwhelmed. Like I got numb to it after a while. But I was excited originally because I was like, it's all these monsters and they're going to be fighting each other. It's going to look amazing. But then I don't even remember it, quite frankly. So this one, I would say, yes, it's the one I would go back to if out of the four. I just thought it was ridiculous, but I also felt like, and this is my snarky comment, there, like, again, none of the human characters had characters. Alexander Skarsgård, I knew nothing about him, nothing. So I didn't care because I was like, who are you and what are you doing? And then who's the other one? Not what's her face?
Rebecca Hall or Millie Bobby Brown?
Millie Bobby Brown didn't do much either. I mean, I felt like their whole story was unnecessary. I was like, I kind of just want you to follow like going into Hollow Earth and all that stuff. But even that, I was like, we're going into Hollow Earth. Where's the sunlight coming from? Like, I couldn't. I was overthinking.
So you don't understand you obviously you were. It's okay. Yeah, I mean they've been building up to Hollow Earth through through Kong Skull Island and King of the Monsters.
Okay.
So it felt like a natural progression because eventually that is where Kong goes to find refuge. So he's not bothered by us stupid humans.
Did that happen like in the originals? Do you know?
Not in the original, like not in 33 or 76. I don't know if any of like the offshoots from there they went into it, but it's been a thing that's like I know from like the Godzilla movies and things like that. So that's kind of like a Toho creation, I believe, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, I was a big dumb kid who had a huge grin on my face from the beginning to the end. And I actually disagree with you on the human stuff. This is the first time any single one of these human characters actually has a relationship with like either one of these creatures, because you get it in the little girl Jaya, who communicates with Kong. I actually think she was like sort of the best part of it, and I like the fact that as I was a kid, I was always really interested in how like zookeepers and stuff would like interact with primates and stuff like that. Like I found it really interesting, and so I'm trying to get my dog to shut up. And so I thought that like the fact that they actually signed to each other was really interesting. And that she sort of became like his human in a way. Like this tiny little girl is the reason he's doing what he's doing. And somebody actually, I think it was Brian Dufield who did Spontaneous last year. He pointed out it really is the first time any of these creatures have sort of had a real connection to a human character in the movies.
And that's fine too. Like I didn't mind her character. I did question how he knew so much sign language, because I feel like they kind of just did a throwaway line explaining it. And I was like, yeah, because she gives like your family is down there and all this. And I was like, wait a second. Like, how does he know so much sign language at this point?
But I mean, she'd been living there. Like, they said that the Rebecca Hall said that she had rescued her when she was an infant. and brought her here to this place because they were studying Kong for like the last few years. So, I mean,
I suppose
you know,
it felt like a stretch, but I didn't mind her, and I did like that connection. I think that's why I did like the movie more, because there was something else going on. But the other characters just seemed like, what's his face from Friday Night Lights? Dude.
well, yeah, but I mean, honestly, here's the thing: like, we know going into these movies, we're American audiences, we're going for the monsters. So,
True, but then hire somebody out. Like, why are you putting all these amazing actors in nothing roles?
well, they were
That's what I
already
think
in the
too.
nothing roles, so now
I
they
know.
still have to be involved somehow.
I'm just
I actually
saying.
like the way that they sort of pared down Millie Bobby Brown from King of the Monsters in this, because she
They
was
did.
a little much in the last movie. So I really actually kind of liked her a lot in this. And Brian Tyree Henry, who is one of the best parts of the Child's Play remake, I thought he was really fun. And I didn't mind like that whole little like excursion, like they're like, oh shit, now we're in Hong Kong. Like, okay, explain that one. And the kid from Wildebeest.
Yeah, I was wondering.
Um,
I couldn't
and
remember where
Deadpool
I knew
2.
him from. Yeah.
Yeah, and Deadpool 2. So I thought that was fun. The Skarsgård stuff, whatever. I mean, at least he's not a bad guy. Every
True.
time I see Alexander Skarsgård in something, he's always a bad guy.
I know.
And he seems really funny and like a really nice person. So like, just let him be Mr. Blando for one movie, and then he can go be, then Hollywood will accept him as a good guy. But
Yeah.
yeah, I just thought for me the Hollow Earth stuff, because we've seen movies that go to this place, like the Journey to the Center of the Earth movies, and they're always very dark and they're very cavernous, and they're never open like this, because what is gravity in the center of our planet? Who knows? How do you generate light? It's interesting, but I actually had a discussion with Adam Wingard about it, because I was like, well, talk to me about how the hell you guys came up with this, because I've never seen it before. But they did some pretty extensive research as to what certain physiogeologists, whatever that is, would sort of guess, because it's supposed to be sort of the reciprocal of the environment we live in. So I don't know. I thought that to me, that stuff, like, you could pause during any of those scenes and it was like, that's like a poster on some kid's wall.
I mean, yeah. I mean, yes. I mean, because it was visually, it was interesting, but I think, maybe this weekend I'll go back and see it at the theater in a big, to make it more of an experience.
Yeah.
But I think it just, I mean, I started giggling and I didn't want to giggle. Like when
I think it's okay to giggle, because I mean,
sits in the throne, I'm like, oh my God.
well, yeah, of course, he's taking it. He's the king now. He is King Kong. Up until then, he'd been Kong. Think about it. You know what I mean? He had not been King Kong, because he was still like a teenager in Kong Skull Island.
True.
He was still, he's still a creature becoming something. So now he is King Kong. As we know him.
But isn't he the son of King Kong, technically? I thought
Well,
he
we
was
don't
the
know.
son.
We don't know that I mean, in one offshoot of the movies, yes, but in all intents and purposes, he is King Kong.
Oh.
Yeah. So, like, because the original Kong is King Kong. So, like, they reference his father, like his parents dying in the original Kong Skull Island, but we don't know necessarily like if that was King Kong. So I'm just assuming this is King Kong. Now we're talking like gorilla lineage, which is amazing. No, I loved that stuff though. And I also, the Hong Kong showdown for me, because it's like some of that stuff just looked like, how they always have like little gifs or whatever the kids are talking about. Where like you see Godzilla and some creature of like fighting in the buildings, and you kind of see them going back and forth. Like the way that they framed a lot of those shots, like they did it in a very modern way, but it still felt like the old Godzilla movies. And I just thought that was freaking cool.
I mean, I did notice that too. I liked it. It was pretty. I was like, does Tokyo really look like this? Every building has the same lighting, except for a different color, which I thought was, and it took me out of it for a second, but it was pretty.
Because I've seen like Tokyo, Japan, and Tokyo is like astonishing from above.
But these were all like they all had the outline, every single one of them. And I was like, that's weird. I didn't like, is that true? I didn't know.
I don't know. I've never been.
I also am one of those people, and this happens anytime I see a movie. I'm like, oh, those people are dying. They're killing so many people. It happened in Man of Steel. It happens in anything. I just start to see empath in me. I'm like, damn it. Like, I'm supposed to be rooting for them, but look at all those people just died. I know.
Well,
I didn't hate it at all. I just remember like when it was over, I'm like, that was silly.
yeah. I think also too, if you're somebody who grew up like sort of loving like 80s and 90s action movies, like there's a lot of sort of nods to those in there
Mm.
also. A lot of Lethal Weapon 2, which is like one of my favorites. So I think from that perspective, that got me really excited because like there's a moment where he like resets his shoulder, which
That made me laugh actually.
was the Riggs thing where
Yeah.
you know Riggs could dislocate his shoulder and then repop it if he had to and stuff. So
Yeah.
I thought it was big goofy fun. We're gonna go to the drive-in and go see it again for Easter because I'm not quite ready to get back in a theater just yet. So
Yeah.
we haven't had our pokies yet. So
I've had one pokey.
oh, I
I'm
haven't
waiting
had
for
any
my second
pokies
one.
yet. So I'm
Yeah.
waiting.
But you know what? Honestly, like we went to see Nobody on Friday
Okay.
in a regular theater, and there was literally nobody around us. Although what we
So
did,
it lived up to its name.
oh,
Oh,
um,
bada boom.
bada boom. But what we did was we did certain things specific. We specifically looked for the prime theater, so you're in the recliner, so they're spaced farther away.
Yeah.
Technically nobody was supposed to be behind us because it's supposed to be a buffer, but everybody comes in late and just sits where they freaking want to.
Of course they do.
So when I got up to go to the bathroom, I came back and there were people behind us, but they were probably 15 feet away, so they weren't going to give me anything. And there was nobody we had like two huge chairs empty next to us. Nobody was in front of us. So like I didn't, and then when we walked into the theater, it was even in Century City, we got popcorn and there was nobody in the lobby. So it wasn't bad. Like if you're nervous about it, as long as you wear your mask
Yeah.
and just I wiped down the seat before I sat on it, but it really wasn't that bad. I mean, it might get worse over the next couple of weeks.
I think everybody's getting antsy, you know. So I think I'm just gonna wait until at least until we get our
Shots.
vaccines. So
Yeah.
you know, I'm a kid I'm somebody who grew up like as a kid at a drive-in anyway. So you know, I can sit in my car and do what I want for, you know, 2 movies and be in my own little bubble of safety. So
True.
trying to think of what the movie is that's going to bring me back into the actual theater. I might be waiting out till about Halloween Kills.
Really?
Yeah, I might.
That's October.
I know.
What about
So,
Dune?
I don't care about Dune.
Like, yeah, I
wish
get
I
what you're saying,
did.
but I feel like it would be better in the big theater.
Oh, it
And
will.
I do love that
will.
director so much, so that's why I'm more excited about it because
I
like
think
him.
it's because I had a friend whose parents were super obsessed with Dune, so they watched all the
Really?
time when I was a kid, and it was just like when you're like 5, that is a really boring ass movie.
Oh yeah.
You can't even put like enough pugs into that movie to make me excited. And I say that somebody who loves Kyle MacLachlan, but it's just kind of boring when you're little. And
Yeah.
it's just kind of stayed that way for me as an adult. And I've never read the source material either.
Me
I never
neither.
read Frank Herbert's book or anything. So I'll see it. I'm not real worried about it. It's
You know, wait, when does Conjuring 3 come out?
that might be July-ish.
Is it July now?
Yeah.
'Cause
I think the
that
nice thing
one-
is a lot of movies that we're talking about, I also know because we have access to them, like I'll be able to see them in controlled environments. Because like
True.
Godzilla versus Kong, they had like a little mini drive-in. Is that how you guys got it to do it too? Or
No, I just
you
got the-
screener.
I got a link. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, it's just those are where, you know, gonna feel safe, I think, for a while. So
True.
I'm gonna you know, if I don't get to cover Saw, you know, Book of Saw, like you know,
That's one I don't care about. I mean, I'll see it, but I stopped watching after the second one, I think.
Why?
I just do not like those movies. I don't like torture porny type. I know that.
Did you know that torture porn's not a real thing?
I know you don't like the phrase, but
It's not
people
real,
know what
though.
I'm. But people know what I'm talking about. They know what I'm talking about when I say like I don't think gore is horrific. I think it's an easy way to do a horror movie because it's not hard to think of something disgusting. It really isn't. And so like anytime what's his face does a movie, I'm like, ugh, Hostel, whatever his name is. He's hot, but I can't stand it. Eli Roth.
Eli Roth, yeah.
Yeah. It's just none of that appeals to me. The first Saw was interesting because it was kind of fresh and new, and I think the second one I was like, and by the end of it, I'm like, I just don't want to see people like get torn apart anymore, and I just stopped watching them.
You're
This
like,
one
why?
I feel like I might.
Why?
You're so funny. Yeah, it's not my thing. Like at
Gotcha.
Hostel, I've never seen Hostel 1 or 2. Never.
They're actually, I'm surprisingly enough, I get everybody's vitriol with Eli Roth because, from all intents and purposes, he's kind of a scumbag. He's done some pretty shitty things to some women that he's worked with over the years. Totally get it. The first Hostel I thought was interesting because it was sort of guys being put in peril, and where it was sort of women manipulating them into it, which I thought was sort of an interesting take. 2 for me is a lot harder to watch because it goes a lot further. And the scene, even if you haven't seen the movie, but you've seen the image of Heather Matarazzo being hung upside down, and basically gets slit open as her blood goes all over the woman. That to me is like one of the hardest scenes like ever. But yeah, like the Saw movies I like because they have the crime procedural element to them. So it's kind of like an episode of like CSI.
Which also I don't like procedural TV shows.
I like procedural dramas in my movies. I think it's been like 15 years since I've watched like Law and Order SVU or something like that, because I used to watch it when I do laundry on Friday nights. But for me, it's just like I liked putting that puzzle together. And 6 is actually really great in the fact that it really kind of comes out swinging in terms of like being a statement on like healthcare, because it's all flashback and it's all about John Kramer, basically being denied health insurance rights when he finds out he's sick, and they find some loophole to basically help like deny his claim and basically try to force him into poverty as he's dealing with brain cancer, which I thought was really interesting. 7 you don't need to see. Jigsaw's okay. 5 is a hot mess, but I think 2
You're not
and 3 are
selling
pretty
me
good.
on this, Heather.
No, but I mean, yeah, it's funny, when Brian and I first started dating, one of the things we did, and this was right before 6 came out, is we were putting together a list of all the Saw movies, like their scenes in chronological order, to do like one big super edit. And then when 6 came out, we realized it was like this prequel movie. We were like, well, screw that, because now everything is like, now we have to go back and like reorganize stuff. But yeah, we're big Saw nerds, so I'm excited. We'll see how it goes. I mean, I'm just curious of the idea of like Chris Rock going into Lionsgate and being like, you guys need to make a new Saw movie, and here is my idea. Like, how random.
I mean, I do think that's, and it's funny because I feel like a lot of people are doing that now. They're like, even with Halloween, just the people that are like, we're fans and we want to go in and do it, and we're going to try to make something of this.
Yeah,
I find that kind of interesting and compelling, and that's the only reason I'm a little bit more like, maybe I'll consider seeing this one, because it seems a little bit more. And I'm not saying highbrow to be insulting of the other ones. Just
you mean like elevated horror?
Elevate, another one of your favorites.
Oh,
hey,
gosh.
I got a fellowship based on a script I wrote, and they called it elevated horror. So I'm all for it.
So basically, when you write your next movie, you should just call it elevated horror.
It's going to take place in an elevator.
I like elevator horror, though.
Elevator horror.
Yes.
I think all horror movies should just be really obvious. Like Snakes on the Plane was elevator horror.
Yeah.
About an elevator, and there was something horrible in there.
Yeah.
Easy.
Did you ever see Devil? Speaking of.
Yeah.
I actually worked on that movie, so.
Did you?
Yeah, I worked for the effects house that worked on it. So.
Oh, nice.
M. Night came into the shop one day, and I literally almost peed my pants. So I was like, oh my God. So this was even post Lady in the Water, but I was still like, oh my God, you're M. Night Shyamalan. Like, that's crazy. So
did you read his book about Lady in the Water?
No, I hate it.
It's actually really good, because he really basically says, yeah, I fucked up.
Dude, this is my funny story. So I remember years and years ago, and we'll wrap up really quick after this. But so like, I never saw Lady in the Water in theaters, and it was like, whenever it was like playing on cable. So this would have been like 2007 or 2008. And I remember being asleep at my house, and I could hear Lady in the Water on TV, like, because I always sleep with like a movie on or something on TV. And I can remember being so bored by the movie in my dream that I actually woke up and changed the channel. And that's literally my subconscious was like, I have to get this out of here. And I literally woke up to change the channel, which I usually never, ever do. So that's my experience with Lady in the Water.
Yeah, I remember walking out. And again, my best friend is very forgiving. He'll like things more than me all the time. And he walked out, and we're usually like, we never really, our faces are very like, we walk out of the theater, and then we'll start talking about it. As we walk out, he just goes, the hell was that? And I don't know, but I did buy the soundtrack. I like the soundtrack. The score is really nice.
Okay.
I
Yeah,
was
we do
gonna
the.
bring up. No, go
Go
ahead.
ahead. No, you go ahead.
No, I was going to bring up something. I can't remember what it was. We were talking about horror and something that happened to us. Forget it. I lost it. It was about religious horror too. Yeah, the topic we were going to talk about.
Well, we did.
We did. That's true. What was it?
Was
Something
it about your
about.
awesome T-shirt that you're wearing?
Oh, my. Your mother's hashtag goals that
Mm,
nobody understands except for
very nice.
a select few.
I understand.
It's actually I've gained weight during COVID, so it's a little tight, so I can't wait to get it off. It's driving me crazy. It's snug. I can't remember what I was going to say, so it's your turn. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, I think we're pretty good. So,
Yeah.
essentially, I guess for some of us, avoid some of the religious horror movies that have come out recently. I guess go watch some old stuff. Go see big monsters fight each other. I guess.
Go see Big Monsters. Check out Requiem.
Yes.
You should watch it. It's
I
good.
actually wrote it
Again,
down on my notebook.
Did you? It's
I
more of a
did.
drama, remember, but there's some really good scenes in it. Really good scenes.
Interesting. Yeah,
Yeah.
I never had heard of it before this. So
I don't even know how I heard of it, quite frankly.
interesting.
Oh well.
So yeah.
Oh,
So
that's what I was going to say. Conjuring, and I don't think I ever told you this story, and I'll make it really quick. But The Conjuring, Devil Made You Do It, whatever,
mhm.
is based on something that happened in Connecticut when I was a kid.
Okay.
And it was in the news that there was a possession involved, but they wouldn't allow it to be admitted to the trial. So, but it was in the news, so I had read about it. And then, long story short, my dad was watching The Exorcist. I was scared because I could hear it. He's like, "It doesn't exist." I'm like, "But Dad, it's in the paper." Because it was literally in the paper. So then, cut 2 years later, Alan, my best friend Alan, and I are watching A Haunting. Remember that show, A Haunting, on Discovery Channel, where they would do
Yes.
reenactments of hauntings, right? So they're like, this, in Connecticut, and my friend's like, "Of course it's Connecticut. It's always haunted." I'm like, "I know. I grew up there. I get it." But they were interviewing the guy that had gone to jail for this murder because he said, "I was possessed by the demons that possessed my girlfriend's little brother." I know, complicated. But he apparently tried to pull the demons out of the little kid and thought it was all gone, and then was possessed enough to kill his neighbor, and he blamed
Oh.
it on that. But there are witness accounts where they say they saw him with a knife, and the knife flew out of his hand and stabbed the neighbor. They said he wasn't even near him. It was so weird. But anyway, so we're watching this haunting, and I was like, I know this story. So I got up and I started looking it up. They had just re-released the book about it that was written in the 80s, but got pulled because they didn't want anybody to be
Probably people for the trial and stuff
for the
like
trial,
that.
right?
Yeah.
But they never released it. So of course I overnighted the book to myself, of course. But I will tell you that, and it's not even well written, and some of it seems like a ripoff of The Exorcist, but I could not sleep without the lights. The lights had to be on for 4 days, and my friend had to sleep in bed with me because I was terrified. Terrified. Then I tried to tell my manager I wanted to do a movie of it because I had sold the script at the time. So he's like, "Let me look into the rights." And when I finished the book, I'm like, "Nope, I'm not doing." He's like, "Why?" I'm like, "I don't want to be involved. I don't want that, and I don't want to be around it." Now I would do it, and now I'm kind of pissed that the
Are the
Conjuring
rights
is
still
not
out
doing it.
there? Oh, I
No,
guess
'cause-
yeah. The Conjuring's do it. So
yeah,
yeah.
so they're doing it.
So James Wan beat you to it. So what you're saying is you could have had James Wan's career if you would have just done this.
Not to brag, but I was actually brought in for a meeting with Warner Brothers just to talk about like ideas, and they actually said, "We want to do something with the Warrens about like their case history." But the way it was described to me, it sounded really stupid, so I never pursued it. Cut to 10 years later, and I'm a dummy because they could have done it, or could have maybe done it. I don't know. They would
And
have
now James
actually.
Wan's living, basically turning out franchises in his sleep. He's like,
Yep.
what if we possess a ceiling fan? We're gonna have 5 spin-offs. It's great.
Yep.
I'm gonna have
Mm.
money forever now.
Damn it!
But you're
James Wan.
here talking to me.
Right, right.
So, you know, it's a trade-off.
I
pretty even.
win. I win,
Yeah.
Heather.
I think you do. You know, who needs those millions and millions and millions of dollars?
Not me.
No, no, not at all.
Yeah.
So
Oh well.
it's probably a good depressing note to end on.
Wah, wah. My poor career didn't go anywhere. That's all right.
Oh, it's still going. You never know.
Well, there are some things in the fire pan or what the pan. So cross your fingers.
In the fire pan.
Yeah, I don't know what the phrase I was thinking for.
That's
I'm
amazing.
old.
Irons in the fire.
Yeah, but like, yeah, I guess that is.
Yeah, you got a few irons in the fire.
Irons in the fire. Thank
Yeah.
you. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I guess we should end this.
Yeah. For the love of God, we need to end this.
Jesus Christ. So thank you everybody for joining us for our religious horror Godzilla discussion. We hope you join us again soon for some nonsense, and we will see you then.